A lot of people think it was just like a terminal, but it's Ubuntu. Okay, so let me get caption. And then I need to make sure I share. I do prefer to use Ubuntu for most of the things that I do, though. I mean, Kali's cool because it has a lot of things, but Ubuntu is kind of nice about updates and things. Yeah, and it's not like clunky. And... No. CentOS. There's some tools that are written for it, but man, it's such a just getting it running. Because I think there it's kind of dated too, but yeah. Oh yeah. Just Debian for me, thank you.
Yeah. Here's a more important question. Would you recommend to use as your main?
No.
No. Right,
I was trained on Red Hat when I was in school.
Okay.
And Red Hat server with no desktop, with just terminal. So, you know, so I like the terminal. Linux, you have to love the terminal. But yeah, but Red Hat commands sometimes can be daunting. All right, so let's go. We're gonna go through this real quick. I think it's not very long. I originally wanted to do the Volatility 3 lab. I think I had some videos that are floating out there, but I ran into some kernel issue because the image I was using uses Windows XP, and then the new Microsoft release only has 7 and up because they stopped supporting the old kernel. So I was going around and around about fixing this, and it becomes another fix, and it becomes another fix. So that rabbit hole. So, you know, finally at the end, I had to decide on what I want to keep, what I wanted to include. But I thought this will be cool to introduce you to REMnux. This is a virtual machine that's often used for malware analysis. It's really great for investigation. You can also include CIF with it. You can incorporate OS with it. It's so cool. It has the capability to be able to run PowerShell concurrently with your virtual machine or your container. But read their documentation. Where you download is where their resource would be posted. But there are tutorials and things that you can refer to. Not a lot of people really use this yet. I think it's still fairly early in a state, but it is an Ubuntu machine with modified stuff, right? Okay, so here it tells you that it's great for malicious software analysis. So when you have suspicious executable DLL, DAT, you know, the weird Windows file that you're not sure if it's, and your AV didn't pick it up, your antivirus did not see what it is, you can examine it a little bit further. There are tools that are written, and their documentation is really good. It goes through the list of tools, and it gives you the repository, sometimes the tutorial, or even the tweets, right? The social media that's linked to it. So, what is it really good for? It's good to look at your indicators for compromise. I think we touched a little bit on that last week when we were talking about system monitoring. So you can use it for IOCs, just like symptoms of the system that would tell you that threats has been capitalizing on your vulnerability. And then we can use this for disassembling or decompiling or decoding or deciphering. And you can also integrate languages and shells, and also, you know, use it as Android. But some of the really cool exercises that you might see online would be malicious files, right? Like documents, PDF, Microsoft Office. So the virus impacted type of files. So you would be able to really see it from the lens of your antivirus. But in the case that it doesn't pick it up, you can send those files through tools like what we see today for PE. So first you are going to visit the site. And then you are going to scroll down, right? Looks similar to Ubuntu. And then you're going to click download here. And on here, it's going to give you variation. There's an OVA for general, but we want to use VirtualBox. So click on VirtualBox OVA, and you are going to click, you don't use the mirror one. You can if this is not accessible, but use the primary. So we're going to download it from this link on the page, right? And they spell it out for you here. So once you download your OVA file, which is different than what we normally see with Kali Linux. So Kali zipped the entire VirtualBox. What they did was they converted into an appliance so you can import it into VirtualBox, which is nice. It's fast. You don't have to unzip anything. And then if you want to confirm the hash, it's right here. So let's say that you're investigating, right? This goes into your documentation as well. What tools you're using, what hash is using, and so on. And then you can import it into these platforms. So, and then on the left, you can find additional information on how to integrate it with the network and other things. Great, great. So I downloaded mine and it went into my downloads folder. Okay. So, right, this is the OVA. Then I open up my VirtualBox application. You can simply search for that here. And then open that up. So what you need is you need to import it in. So the best way is to click File, Import Appliance. And then you want to browse this. We can point it to where we download the appliance, which is our OVA file. I'm not going to complete this because I already have mine running. And then what you're going to do is you're going to proceed to next. This is important only because RCCD, MVC locked this folder. So if you put it here and you click finish, you're going to get an error. So I had put down the step for you that you click this drop down menu, you choose other, and you're going to make your own folder. So I'm going to make desktop, make a new folder. I call it REMnux, right? You can name it anything you want. CIS, 41A, whatever, right? Make a folder for it. Select that folder. Make sure that folder is listed here. And then click finish. So at that point, you're going to see the status bar on the right side. And it's going to tell you how successful you are with importing it. If you're seeing an error, repeat the steps. Okay? And call me so I can help you. Any question? So that's the first part right here. Right? I made a folder. And then before I run it, so it's going to load it, you're going to go to settings, go to your system, just like what we did with Kali, up it to 8,000. Anytime that you're doing forensic, scanning, any kind of tools that you use, make sure that your virtual machine is beefy, okay? Lots of RAM, cores. So I'm going to spare 4 for my VM and 8,000. Okay, if you're attaching USB to capture image, right, like REMem, make sure that you add the USB and then click OK and then start. So all of that is happening from step 11, 12, 13, and 14. So it's going to boot. And then you're gonna do a sudo app update and upgrade. And unlike Kali, it doesn't have a millions of other applications, so the process is not as lengthy, right? And it also depends on network connection and your system state. So I just did that, right? Fairly fast, just minutes. I know that when we did Kali, this will take like 10 minutes, right? Okay, also the version is a little bit more current. And then sometime we would see that it's failing to fetch certain things. It might be that, you know, they did something with that repo. So we're going to use a thing called Malanyze. And this is a way that we can do static analysis. Your REMnux is really good for static analysis and also online analysis, but it's useful in other area outside of just malware, right? You can use it as a Linux VM, but we're going to use this tool for your PE files. So in the case that if you have like dynamic library files, your DLL or your .dat or the weird Windows file that you're not sure if it's malicious, like I said earlier, put it through a scan, right? So we're going to do executables today because, you know, our lovely PC, your Windows PC normally would have malware that would infect or be written as executables. So ideally, you should use YARA and Clam AV with it. I did write some section on YARA signatures before I rewrote this lab. But you can look at, they have a really good documentation that it walks you through on how to use it. So think of these is like your Windows Defender for Linux, right? Clam AV is for antivirus and it needs YARA signature to be more current, so it can also detect by behavior along with the definition of what a virus would be. And then there are additional information about using cryptography. This is good for ransomware detection, but you can also integrate virus total, which we're going to use for API today. And then you know, all of these things. I'm sure you can find that on the documentation. So first, what we're going to do is we are going to install the libraries that it needs. And this is, I tried to separate the space so you know that it is one entire command. And you can copy and paste. Okay. So if you want to type that out, when I test your lab, normally I type everything out. So I want to see how long it would take for someone to go through the process, right? Okay, so first what we're going to do is we are going to get all the libraries, and you can find this on their documentation. It is written, if you read the source code, it is CPP, so it's C++, right? And so it would need to have GCC running and in order to build and make the file or your application. Brandon had pointed out that you can run one or the other, but if you run one command to the next, it's not going to make a big difference. But there is the second command is going to be for FreeBSD compared to the first. I just include that whole section because it was just easy for me to put everything down. All right, so if I need to run this, right, so I'm still going to get the same library. This, right, it's the same thing. So the boost libs is really for the FreeBSD. So if I run this, it's not going to really hurt anything. It's just going to say that it's already there. Right? And it says that, oh, packages is not installed. You need to install it. And then you can do the sudo install, but not a big deal. Next, we're going to clone. So we're going to actually pull the source code from their repo. So we would have the package. And then after that, because we are actually accessing the directory, so once you have downloaded, you can go into the folder, and then we are going to do a CMake, make sure the period is also there. So we're gonna make sure that it's compiled. So it's using the compiler, it's building my program. And then, so I have to say that compared to some other application, their documentation is somewhat thorough and decent, which is great. I found a little bit of an issue with some part. But other than that, everything is pretty good, right? I've worked with other application where even the install part, you have to, you know, find your way through it because it might be dated. So here it's linking the libraries and all of the things. But keep in mind that this is Ubuntu based. So if you minimize this, you have your desktop and, you know, like the Kali, your menus are on here. So if you need to access Firefox, not Internet Explorer, Firefox, your files and other apps, you can find them here on the, after you click activities. I like Linux for its simplicity, right? And things are designed from top down. But unlike Kali, right, your taskbar is going to appear on the bottom. If you have that application open, look at the bottom instead of the top when you minimize it. Okay, so it shows that I am done with building my program. And then I'm going to make sure that I have the version information. So this is just for verification. And we need to go into bin because we're going to use the application from bin. Okay, so it tells me that this is the version, the license information. I have Yara and hash library and OpenSSL for the purpose of plugin. Okay. Any question? So the next part, you are going to, I recommend that you use it within your virtual machine, because if you have it outside, you're still going to have to copy and paste it in. So we are going to open this up. You can go to home. You don't have to go to upload, but I think that's the landing page. So I'm going to go to activity, open up my Firefox from the inside. And then I can paste in the address. I would do everything inside here. If you're using it for the first time, you will have to sign up. And the button for it is on the top right. You need to access the API key. So that way you would be able to adapt another application with this application, right? This is where we can report malicious file and so on. Now, if you're using the free non-subscribe account, you can only have public API key. And the application we're using, it doesn't work with private API key anyway, so generally we're good, right? I already have an account, so I'm just gonna go ahead and sign in. But if you don't, you have to create an account by signing up, and then you gotta go validate it with your email address that you gave it. Okay. And I will not record this part, but you should not share your API key with anyone, right? It is to your account because someone can use the application maliciously. All right, but you would go into here, right? And then you would click your API key. So once you have an account, you just simply click on where next to your, what do you call it? Emoji. No, not emoji. I'm losing the word now. But anyways, click on the API key. And this is blur out, but once you click the copy, you can paste it, you can see it in plain text, right? I'm glad that they blur it out because I have done many tutorial videos for Python with cybersecurity with my API key exposed because I'm demoing it for my class, right? But yeah, so copy this and you can paste it into the document. I will not do anything to your API key, I promise, right? But if you want, you can put it into Notepad and secure it, whatever you want, right? It's always going to be there. And so, but make sure we accept the term of use, copy your API key. So it walks you through that, right? Click on that button and then paste it here, right? I have to make sure everything is accessible for the students who might not know where everything is. To some of you that are very advanced, you can probably zip through this in 2 minutes. Okay, so put down your API key so you have it. And then what you're going to do is you are going to make sure that you're in bin again. The reason, for Linux, it's always good. See how my active application is down here. Kali normally is up here, right? So if I need to go back to terminal, I just click the tab there. And then I just want to make sure that I ls it. So you might not have to access the bin again. Yeah, I think I have an extra step because I might have added it to the last step. So 22 might not be needed. So what we're going to do next is we are going to configure our application. Because out of the box, the API keys in there they're X's, right? X, 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 X. But what you want is you want the API key to be stated in the configuration file. So you don't have to do step 22. You can skip the CD bin because if you already CD bin in the last step up here, we should be okay. Okay. Then you are going to nano into Malanyze conf file, the configuration file. So at this point, I'm going to access the configuration file. It doesn't have that many lines. You are going to use your cursor. Remember your arrow key to move your cursor to the API area. And you're going to erase all the X's, right? But if you copy so if I go here and if I copy this, right, it's copied to the clipboard, I would go back over here and I can right click and paste it in here. Okay. So you need to copy and paste it into your file, but you got to clear out all those X's with your arrow key and be able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to stop share for a second. Because I don't want it to be on the YouTube video. And then once you paste your key in there, Control X. Yes. And enter. Okay, so make sure we modify our API key. Are we good with this? Any questions? Any problem? So what you're learning is to adapt an API to your security application, right? And then after that, what we're going to do is we did step 24. We're going to use Clam AV now. So now we're going to do a plugin. This is considered a plugin, right? It is able to adapt to it. And you can set up Yara rules with the clam AV. So what good is it if your antivirus doesn't have rules, right? But everything is written in Python, so we are going to run it with Python 3. If you're trying to read the documentation, they only state Python, but because the program was originally written for the 2.7 version, right? And then now they adapt it with Python 3. So make sure that you have Python 3 installed, state Python 3 in your command. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. And it's gonna download, so basically you're running updates right here, right? For your antivirus, and you're adapting your antivirus. Why is that important? Because we're investigating malware. We wanna have the latest signature, the latest behavior, all of that. And when we're working with these systems, you can use Yara rules along with clam AVs. You can set the rules. What would be considered a threat, right? A malware. Some of the rules are already preset for you. So it's gonna come down, and it might not have everything, but it's still okay for our practice. So take a screenshot. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna move back one level, right? CD ... takes you back one directory. I need to be in Malanyze. So CD space ... So now I move back one folder or one directory. I'm getting out of bin now. And after that, I'm going to look at the help page, because that's where you always start with a lot of these applications if you don't know how to use it, right? So we're going to do the help option, and it gives me all the switches or all the options that I can use. I can put the version information. I can do the PE specific type of file. I can also use hashes. But some examples right here, and we're going to do the example today using a targeted file, a targeted executable. So what we're going to do next is we are going to download our targets. You don't know how many places I've been trying to get malware for you to test today. So these are just suspicious executable, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that they're threats, but you know, I didn't want to venture into some of the malicious website because it's still my network and my systems and RCCD network and RCCD system. So we want to try to keep it educational. But if you have malware files, executable, things like that, set it as a target. Okay, you can venture into something a little bit more crazy, right? Using Tor Onion type of router, etc. Okay, so on here, I'm going to go ahead and copy this link, and I want to use my virtual machine to access that. So go back to your virus total, right? Page, and you can log out of it if you want. We're going to open up another tab, and we're going to paste and go. So it's going to take you to, so I had put the link directly to the executable that you can download, but if you look on the left, there are folders that you can use. So just keep in mind that some of these things been around for a long time, so they might be kind of dated, like using Windows XP, like I said before, right? I know they have a chapter on Volatility 3, but before, Volatility used to have a bunch of samples, and they have taken it offline because, you know, a lot of people were using it and the bots were accessing it and spreading some of the malicious files. So now, in order to get it, you have to request it from them, and then they will grant you permissions to access a certain VMem or, you know, the dump files for memory that they created. But you can make your own using VMware or for hypervisor. Okay, so all you have to do is click the download. And then on the left, you should see CMD. So scroll down and then click on the CMD one and then download, right? I want to, even though this is command prompt, I know that for Windows, but we wanted to see if it's real or not, right? Because someone might download cmd.exe, but it might be embedded with malicious code, right? We don't know. And sometimes it looks benign like this, but it could be malicious. So let's assume that we have these executable and we want to know if they're bad. So after you downloaded those files, you're going to access the downloads. So go back to your terminal and then access the downloads directory. So I moved from Malanyze to the downloads directory because we built the application already. You don't have to run it directly from the actual repo from its folder or its directory. And then you can now in Windows environment, this is cross-platform, so you can run this on Mac OS. This particular application, you can run it on Windows system. But on the Windows, you would see it as the example. You would do malanyze.exe, cmd, and then so this is your target file right here, right? That's your target file. That's what we wanted to check. So it tells you the things from the software, right? A lot of this is being pulled from the header and the license agreement for the software, the copyrighted, and then, you know, React OS operating system. So we want to write down this information. So if you're investigating this particular application or executable, right, this, I would screenshot this and then I would put the detailed notes. Right, it even tells you the TLS callbacks. So we have that information. Then we're gonna do the same thing for the install proxy. So you can just up arrow key, right? But instead of cmd.exe, we can do install, what is it, proxy? Install capital C md proxy.exe. Okay. So it tells me also that this is a PDB extension for the debug. And that's something that it's worthwhile to look into because okay. So screenshot, after you run it for the CMD, we want to replace that with this. That's your target exe. If it doesn't give you subsystem, just put none. If it doesn't give you architecture, it doesn't. Not all software would specify that. So I wanted to let you know that sometimes code and applications don't always include the detail like this. Traditionally, they might have a lot of this information, but it might not have subsystem, all of that. But that's important because at the low level, we want to see what's functioning. Okay. So after this, we probably need to examine the hashes, right? So next, what we're going to do is we're going to use the D resources option. For the CMD. So this is going to give you a little bit more information, but it's just more detailed information. And it's lengthy. But ultimately, you're seeing the sizes and also the entropy. So what, Brandon, did you have a question?
Oh, just specifically, like, what are these specifically? Like,
it's specifically for the language. It's language conversion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so string added literal string.
Yeah. Literal strings, that's correct. But not all applications are going to give you this. It's just an application that is accommodating a lot of different languages. You're going to see it's more lengthy for the literal strings. That's correct. And they are varied in sizes, also depending on the language and the text within for that language, right? The language package, basically, that's included with that particular software tool. Okay, so we did that for the CMD, and then you can repeat that for the other one. So we would just replace it with install CMD, right? What is it? Proxy? I'm operating on 2 hours sleep, so my mind is like gradually giving up. Oh, EXE, that would help, right? Okay. So here you got a little bit more information earlier, right? We know that we originally saw that it is English United States from the previous command. And then you also have Latin and Western Europe. But this might not be 100% accurate. It's just the code page has some information. So some of this is going to help build out some additional information about that particular potential threat, right? And then if you compare it to the prior output, what additional information did you have? So I did that for the proxy. Then now what we're going to do is we are going to do the dump for the hashes. And there are more to explore based on the option. Okay. So we know that this is for Microsoft because it's NT Dynamic Library. Here are the hashes that it's giving us. So you got the deep hash, you got the SHA-256, MD5, and import hash. If you want to check to see if it's total, what do I do with the hash? Take the hash value and submit it to virus total, right? But if it's already plugged in, it should be also, you can integrate that. So read their documentation on how you can use it directly with the application, because that's why you get the API, not just to get virus information, but you know, that's useful too. Okay. So these are like the command for the command prompt, right? So, you know, kernel 32 that was made for 32-bit, because it still is system 32. When you open up command prompt, you still see that. And then so for the pointer, the locations, so a lot of the things, it tells you exactly where that is in memory, the size of it, the image size of it, virtual addresses, all of this stuff, right? But also specifically for the languages package, like what we said before. Okay. Take a screenshot, what information is provided with the hash. I didn't only just have MD5 or SHA, right? I have the set of hash for each of the individual language package for that particular application. So if it had subfile, it also provided you with the hashes for those. Then I'm going to go ahead and change that. So up arrow key, and we're going to do install CMD proxy. And again, I also have the hash values, right? Then what we're going to do next is we are going to apply the plugins. So we're going to use the Clam AV. And if it is effective, oh, Did it not see malwares?
Directory that is to malware instead of downloads.
Oh, yeah, so for it to read, correct, yeah. Did it come down as downloads? Yeah, it did, right?
And you most likely will have to cd dot to.
Yeah. You have to be out of it. Yeah, it ran into some errors still, but it's gonna give me similar information. That's what it has originally. Okay, so the fix for that last one, we're gonna do two things. So we're gonna do cd space to get out of the downloads folder so we can see it to build the package or to run the package. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna change this to downloads. That's where your applications or your EXEs are. Okay. So within that, we learn how to use a different virtual machine, right? Specifically for malware analysis. And there are more to explore for you. You can look at the application that it has. You can add more application to it. I think it is a little bit more responsive compared to Kali, but Kali does have forensic mode. You also were able to integrate API and plugins with your current applications, especially using Malanyze along with ClamAV and Yara, right, for your virus definition and integrated virus total. There is a whole section with the plugin for the virus total itself, but you can definitely go through it. We didn't fully flesh out like the Yara or the ClamAV stuff, but you know, just enough to be able to integrate that with the application. Okay. So you can test it with other type of PEs. You can also test it. It has the capability to also do like PDF and other things. So you can try to download a malicious PDF. Check out a program called Origami, right? Origami, I think you can use it with this particular, it goes well with this virtual machine. And what Origami does is allows you to customize, hence like the nature of your document, like your PDF. I'm not talking about Adobe, right? Like to edit Adobe. That's just the content of the file. But if you want the file, like if you're looking at from an attacker standpoint, what they can do to a PDF, like embed things, add code, stuff like that. There are a lot of really different tools that you can use to be able to modify documents or things that look like documents, right? So basically they use document as a shell and then they put in other things or habit behavior change. But if you go into, let me show you. If we go back to REMnux.org. If you go to docs right here, right, and then if you go to their documentations, there are a lot of really cool stuff that you can read about. If you want to do dynamic reverse engineering, you can take a look at that. There's shellcode, ELF files, right? When you click on that, it would go to different projects. But if you want to use scripts, because I like using script, everything should be automated. It's awesome. Spider Monkey is great. Yeah. And it gives you the link where that project exists and then all the related stuff like the repo, where the code is. I think they do a really good job with this. It's really nice. And then if you want more data specific, like gather, so they have all of these tools, right? And I mentioned to you Origami before is because I was diving a little bit deeper into, I was going to add a component to your lab to do PDF and docs. But if you want things like show Dan, right? Indicator for compromise. If you want the writer for it, you can select that here, IP who is, Viper, there are tons of stuff that you can use. And then virus total. So we can use it directly as command or script based. So when we can make it into a script base, and it's really good if you have it automated. So you can take a look at how you can get those script. I think I did a lecture on Scalpel in one of my classes before. But this is also a really cool tool. This is used for carving. So it's great for forensic. Yeah, I think I did this for forensic for 27A. But there are, you know, if you want to learn more about Yara, yeah, I think we did talk about Scalpel or use a small part of it, or we talked about it for your final project for 27A.
Yeah. Or like like image file,
Yeah.
text file, right? In hindsight, I think it's-
Yeah, it's a really good tool. So there are a lot of different options that you can incorporate some of the tools with this virtual machine, right? I think I did PyPDNS before, but you can do this to do passive DNS query. This can also be done with other attack base or test. Shodan, definitely use it as an API. It's great. Okay. Now, if you want to do the malicious PDF and the doc, like I said before, you can go into analyze documents. Origami is here, right? You can also do PDF. There are tons of tools. Also parsers, creators, resurrect. There's all kinds of stuff. And this is only a fraction. You can find others online as well. Any question? It's simple when it works, right? I didn't want you guys to be like, oh my God, this is not working. Why am I getting all the errors? So sometimes tools get changed and then also the things get changed, right? Like your target files might change and it's no longer supporting that. So just keep in mind. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop.